If you are a parent who is requesting testing for your child, concerned about getting your child tested, or the school has brought it to your attention, this video is for you. I want to talk to you about what your options are, some of your rights, and other things that may be helpful in this process or this journey for you, because it can be a long one, it can be a lot of information, and sometimes school don't want you to know everything you're supposed to know so that you can get the most out of this experience. So if you are seeking testing or diagnosis of your child for any reason, stay tuned. So reasons you may be seeking diagnosis. Maybe your child is just not performing on a grade level. Maybe they're not wanting to go to school, for example. Maybe they are not performing well in school behaviorally. They're having emotional challenges with going to school. Maybe there's some things you noticed at home that you're just like, what that mean? What is that? Now, I do want to say I do think people should be more honest about what's going on with their child. And I want to normalize getting children tested and the stigma around mental health and diagnosis in general, because a lot of times parents know things are not typically what they should be, but nobody wants an unhealthy child. Nobody's asked for an unhealthy child. Please forgive me. People want their children regardless how they come out, but no one is praying for a special needs child or hoping their child needs additional needs, right? And so when you have that and it's unexpected, it takes you off guard and it's hard to know what you should do and how to respond. And then a lot of times parents are in denial, rightfully so, because why me? How could this happen? What did I do? We find shame and guilt, and we blame ourselves from when our children are not developing at the rate in which we think they should, or the way other people's are, because we do compare just naturally to other people's children. Okay, and so sometimes parents have noticed some delays in development and they try to normalize them and, oh, but she's really smart, and oh, but he can actually do this. But you can tell technically there's some things they're lacking. And this denial will then cause parents to take longer to get them tested. I would advise you not to do that. The sooner you know, the better. The sooner you can intervene, the sooner you can correct, the sooner you know what's going on and can help your child struggle less. Because without the right accommodations or modifications or medications they may need, they will struggle and have many more challenges than they would otherwise if they got the help. And the longer you wait to find out, the harder it can be to catch them up, because they're going to get further behind or struggle again more than they would have otherwise. And so now you've created other challenges, whether low self-esteem, their behavior is out of control because they've they feel defeated when they're in class, and so they start to act out because they're children. They don't have the words. They're not going to say, "Mom, I'm academically delayed," or "Dad, I'm underdeveloped compared to my friends in kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fifth grade." It it just is what it is. They don't care enough about their education to value where they are comparatively, right? So I want you to be honest with yourself. If you notice some things, make sure you're going to your pediatrician appointments regularly. I know a lot of people are anti doctors and anti vaccines. I'm not here to argue about any of that. I'm just saying the sooner the better. You do not have to agree with everything people tell you. So if you are anti medication, just because you go get your child tested and they say, oh, we should put him on this, does not mean you immediately have to do it. You can say no, you can refuse care, but at least you know, hey, my child needs additional assistance in these areas. These are some things we need to find strategies for, at least so you can address it and deal with it and manage it so that child's life can be easier. And rightfully so, if that child's life is easier, it probably will make your life easier, because it's difficult to deal with something you are unaware of or something you don't understand. Okay. And so sometimes the school may say, hey, we want to test your kid. Hey, we suspect this. And then there's other times you can go to the school. I want to say this and make it very clear in case they never tell you. If you request testing, this stuff is federal. I'm going to make another video about accommodations in special ed and 504 and the programs, the differences. But I just want to tell you, if you want your child tested, they cannot tell you no. By law, if you request testing, and this can be verbal, you don't have to put it in writing. I'm going to tell you to put it in writing, because they will say you didn't say that, they didn't understand. If they're a school that doesn't want to do testing, they will give you the runaround. All you have to do is say, I want my child tested, and they need to start the process. There's a number of days they have to start that process and complete that process. I don't know how much of it is federal versus district, so please do your research, look it up. I'm just telling you to find the resources for your area. I'm in Texas, and so I don't know how much is Texas specific, but what I do know, special education in 504 is federal stuff. Those are federal guidelines that must be implemented in the education. And so You can request testing without data, without reason. Just because your own suspicions, you can request testing. They are not to deny you. They may say, "Oh, give us time. Let us do this." Say, "No, I would like to start the process." Request it. Just, for sake of argument and pushback, after you have that conversation, if you do mention it to a teacher at a conference or whatever, go back and say, "Per our conversation earlier, I'm requesting testing for my child for XYZ, if you know specific testing or if you want a full battery." Now, you do need to know the language to an extent. You can just say you want your child tested. But if you're wanting your child tested for a learning disability versus ADHD versus other things, ideally you would, the more you know and the more vocabulary you can use, the more they will think you know what you're talking about, and the less they will probably try to play in your face. That's my personal opinion. I've seen it. I've worked with it. I've worked around it. I was in the system and I was helping parents get around it while I was over it. Okay. So you can request it verbal or in writing, do both, and then follow up. So where are we? Have you started? Have you pulled them from class? What are we waiting on? Do y'all need anything from me? Always follow up. Okay. Now, if this is the other way and they're pushing it on you, ask questions. Okay. If they're saying your child might have this or we want to test them for this, and you don't have the same suspicious, not if you're in denial. If you're in denial, let them people do it because they're going to do you a favor. But if you're just like, no, because some schools, certain types of schools that like to have certain numbers and standards and accolades, and they like to look a certain way on paper, they will try to push kids into certain different demographics. They're never going to say this. They're just, these are the rules they play, the games they play. They will push kids in certain demographics so that they don't count for certain numbers when they're getting their school report cards or their grade for the campus based on testing results. Basically, if your child is special ed, the scores are calculated differently. Essentially, your child's score won't hurt them. If your child is performing poorly, they're scared. They're scared that your child is going to ruin their data. They're going to want to put your child in a category, not always, but more times than not, in a category so that your child doesn't screw up their numbers. And so when your child is into another special population is not just special ed or 504. There's other special pops in this education system. But just for the sake of this conversation, if they put your child in special ed, it gives them some wiggle room. Now, I say push back. Unless you're like, yes, I've been waiting. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. You should now after this video. But if you're just like, oh, I was concerned about that, but I wasn't sure if she was on grade level or not. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Yes, go. It's okay. But sometimes you need to take a step and say, why? Because there's some things they should have implemented before to come to that, or they should have something to present to you, some data, because they're supposed to track data. And there should be a data binder, data folder, something from all these stupid tests kids are having to take all year long now. They're taking more tests than they are learning, but that's a different rant for a different day. But there should be something they're coming to the table say like, hey, look, we've been tracking your child's data for 6 weeks. They need all this additional support in order to perform like their peers, and or all the things we've tried, nothing's working. Here's proof. If they don't have it, question it. They should have it because it's the expectation. But I'm just saying, let those people prove to you, because sometimes in certain schools, I'm just telling you what I've seen. I'm not saying all schools do this. They will say that because this child is harder to work with. If all the other kids are easier to work with, whether they're well above their counterparts, they learn quicker or whatever. Just because other kids learn faster or know more than your child does not mean your child is behind. Those kids can have older siblings or hang with adults, and so they've learned other things from other people. It doesn't necessarily mean they're intellectually further ahead than your child. So just, again, push back. Now, a lot of people don't know what to say. I've had to coach people and help people have these conversations with the school for maybe 10 years now, if not more. What do I say? How do I write the email? Things of that nature. I did write a book, which you see it here in the background. It's not a book. It looks like this because it's a notebook. It's parent teacher conferences. And what you'll find is I made it on lined paper, but there's questions you need to ask. This is a template for what to say and do in each meeting. That way, when you go to meetings, you're not left without certain information, because if you don't ask certain questions directly, you may not have the answer, because they get away with omitting information. They don't necessarily lie, but they may not tell you everything, and you need to know. So in this book, you can find it on Amazon. I'll link it in the description. It's the questions you need to ask at meetings. This is even if your child is not getting tested. If you're getting called a lot, if your child is just having questionable behavior from the school or at home or whatever, and you keep having to go to the school, this will just have every meeting you've ever had with with the people at that school about your child in one place. This will be your notebook, and it's a template. Each page has what you need to get out of each meeting, so you're not going home saying, what did they say, and I forgot they said then did something, because they're going to use language and or jargon that you're not familiar with. There's a lot of information in education that is not an everyday term. It's specific to the academic setting. And I'm also going to do another video to educate you on those different words. But in here, you will find at the beginning all the terms you will often hear when you're going to meetings in education. This is table of contents. So I have understanding education acronyms. And so all the acronyms and words like ARD, FIE, IEP, all those things, I have them here for you. So you wouldn't have to guess, and you wouldn't have to wait for them to explain it. You don't have to let them talk over your head. You can get this ahead of time so you can be prepared. And then also in the beginning, I have a list of questions to ask. And it's full of questions. And like I said, each page, then you have a spot for the date of the meeting. What is this meeting for? Who's in the meeting? Who are you talking to? So that you don't have to remember anything. And anytime something comes up in question, you can just simply have this book at every meeting and take it out and say, oh, I met with so and so on this day, and this is what we talked about. We agreed on this. This is you'll be prepared, because this can be overwhelming. It's a lot of information, and it's a lot of important information. So sometimes the school, if they don't agree with you, or depending on the type of school you are, they will tell you to get your child tested elsewhere. You as a parent may want to get your child tested elsewhere. I would say if you don't agree with the school pushing testing, do your own testing outside. The key here is that getting tested at school is free, and that usually wins people over. The problem is you get what you pay for. It's going to take a while to get it done. It can take the entire school year for you to get those results. It's not supposed to, but it can happen that way. I've seen it more times than not. I knew a kid was dyslexic from the first day of school because I was a reading teacher, and they confirmed it in May. And so this kid didn't get any help all year. Not because of me, I helped as much as he could, but from the school and the district, they didn't help him because the testing didn't confirm he was dyslexic until May. Now, that parent should have pushed back, but they didn't know better. But that's what happens a lot of times, and parents just don't know. They're just waiting and trusting the school. Stop trusting those people with your child. There's a lot of good schools, and I don't care if you pay good money. Everybody has their own agenda, and the people at the top just want to get paid. And they just get paid from your kids coming to school each day. And some of them get paid more as long as their data looks a certain way. Be selfish about your children. Okay? So, one, getting tested at school is free. But however, getting tested at school is limited to what you're getting tested for. So, let me be very clear. Getting tested at the school is getting tested for educational or academic related disabilities, ADHD, and autism. So, math, learning disability, reading, learning disability. They can check for intellectual disability, ADHD, autism, or just a general learning disability. And as you can hear, this is all generic. What the hell does that mean? Who knows? But your kid can get services and get help and accommodations, which may be important. And so it's a start. It's going in the right direction. But however, if your child needs more than that, this school cannot give you more than that, because that's just out of their scope of practice. So I tell people, depending on what your concern is, go with the school. It's free. If you don't trust the school, or if you think the school is up to something, use a psychiatrist, use your pediatrician, find other resources to get them tested. Hopefully you have good insurance. ADHD, just about anybody can test, any professional the pediatrician can send the paperwork home for that. A psychiatrist can do it. A therapist can do it. The school can do it. So you can confirm that, as well as autism, from a lot of channels. But then outside testing, if you want to do a full evaluation, sometimes there is a wait list, and it can be pretty expensive to do a comprehensive evaluation. So At least if you do it with the school, which is free, you'll have some insight, something's going on. They will confirm some suspicions. Then you can take that and say, I just want to figure out what this specific thing is. Are they dyslexic? Is it dyscalculia? Because also with behavior things, the only thing the school will say your child has outside of autism is ED, for emotional disturbance. What the hell does that mean? We don't know. It just means your child uh, emotions are unstable. It just means they fluctuate. 1 minute they're happy, 1 minute they sad, 1 minute they're angry, 1 minute they helping the teacher. It's very vague. It does help your child get accommodations, which is important to make their education experience a little smoother and maybe you fewer phone calls because they'll be able to help put them in certain classrooms, things like that. But as far as you helping your child for the rest of their lives, nobody knows what the hell ED is. So, what ED can be, which the school cannot tell you, which again is why you should probably do outside testing, is ED could be bipolar, it could be schizophrenic, it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it can be so many other things. It can be social anxiety, but the school does not have the professionals, the diagnostician. These are the names of the people you'll be talking to. You need to know. You need to know the school counselor, the diagnostician. The diagnostician does the learning disability assessments, and then there's LSSP, which is the licensed the licensed school psychologist. I forgot the licensed specialist of school psychology, something like that. We took some of the same classes, but so they do the ADA, they do the behavior assessments. Autism ED, they'll confirm that, but they don't have the right or the licensure to diagnose the other diagnoses that a LPC, which is what I am, a licensed professional counselor or a psychotherapist, um, a psychiatrist. Those would be the people to give you those diagnoses because those may require medication. Those may need additional accommodations. Those are things you may need to change at home for this kid to be successful anywhere and everywhere at all times. You would have to get that from a professional outside of the school either way. And so sometimes it is better for you to do outside testing or evaluation to know, is your child just having really bad anxiety, because it may show up a different way at school and they may assume it's something else. And then they will get a different diagnosis. So if you tell them, you can get accommodations for anxiety. If your child has already been if your child has already been diagnosed with anxiety, they can get accommodations for anxiety. And you can just share that to the school. And once they get those accommodations, all the other issues may be relatively eradicated or if not mitigated. And so they might start doing better just because of that alone. So sometimes I think it's best to do both if you're going to do it. Like, go big or go home. Get as much information as you can so you can make an informed decision on how you want to help this child. Because remember, you can decline services, you can decline medication, but at least you'll have some insight that something's going on with your child and know that they do need help. And then you can just take all this information from all these people and say, what are we going to do about it? But I just think if there is something going on, find out sooner. The longer you take, the more your child is suffering. And we don't want that, because when your child is suffering, that looks like a multitude of ways. They can be retained, they can become aggressive because again, they don't have the language to say, Mom, I don't know what everybody else knows. Dad, everybody is smarter than me. At a certain age, they do pick up on that though. And you don't want to wait till then to get them tested. Help those babies. That's your job. Advocate for your children. So you can get your child tested outside, or your children, um, because the school only tests for so much. If they're only having trouble for school related stuff, maybe the school related testing is enough. Better safe than sorry is my opinion. And then the school should review the what accommodations they have. So the whole purpose, when it comes to getting your child tested, I want to clarify something. I want to make this clear to everybody. When I taught elementary school, there was a lot of parents who want their child tested and they wanted their child diagnosed more than they wanted tested because they didn't really. Anyways, they wanted their child diagnosed, and if this is you, hello. They wanted their child diagnosed so that they can get a check. There are very few diagnoses that you can get a check for. Okay, and usually the ones your kid will qualify for, based on what we see, is not one you're going to get paid for. And what happens is these kids now have all these diagnoses from the school because you keep pushing testing and you still not getting checked. And the whole time the child don't even know they're in special ed now. I need y'all to tell y'all children, especially if you fight for your child to get services, let's make it clear. If you get an IEP, you're in special ed. In the stigma. If you have an IEP, you are in special education. You cannot have an IEP without being in special education. SPED is short for special education. IEP is short for individual evaluation plan. That is how you are going to learn best in school. It's the written out plan for how to make sure you are successful in school. Okay. And so these kids get put in these programs, they don't know. They talking about their friends for being in special ed the whole time. They special ed because parents are pushing. So please check because you are genuinely concerned and want your child to be successful in school, not for ulterior motives. I know that may fall on deaf ears. It happens, so I'm not gonna act like it doesn't. But your child may get diagnoses and it's gonna require more work of you as the parent, and I just need you to be aware. There's way more meetings you're going to have to go to, even though sometimes you don't want to be bothered and you have to work and you can't keep taking off. You keep pushing testing, you're going to be inconvenienced. You're going to have to come to the school more. I've had children whose parents tried to tell them how to act on the days they were going to get tested. Y'all got to do better. One, we knew they were acting weird that day because they don't act like that. Two, they be telling on y'all. They literally were like, my mama say somebody meet me say, cause we be like, why you acting like that today? They were like, my mama say somebody coming to observe me today, and that's why you acting like that. And and then y'all don't even know what the diagnosis look like, so your kids just be annoying that day, and they be it's hilarious and annoying. Your kids be just struggling and wasting a whole day of learning, trying to behave the way every way you coach them. And I'm not telling you to get better at it. I'm just saying stop doing that foolishness. Leave the resources for the kids who need it and find another. I know it's hard in this economy. And we all need some extra money and we need and want some checks in the mail. But getting your child diagnosed is not the way to do it if they don't need it. And if you're going to get your child diagnosed, follow through with the diagnoses. Because then, if your child does get diagnosed with ADHD and has to take medicine, please give them their medicine as prescribed. Because that's the other thing. Then, going on a tangent. There's benefits. We're going to go over in another video the benefits, the accommodations, and modifications that you can get under 504 and special ed. We're going to go over all the language. But if you're seeing this before that video comes up or the video is not in depth enough for your specific situation, I would definitely recommend getting this notebook, which has most of this information in there for you to be successful in a meeting with your child or children's teachers or school and staff so that you are equipped and you know what you're saying and you know what they're saying so you can make the best next steps for your child.